Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the February 15th meeting of the Board of Directors of MCE. This is the first time we've met since last year, and it's really exciting to see everybody again. I know, it's really shocking. It's been a long time since we were all together. And in fact, it's been so long since we were all together that we were thinking maybe we're going to do a roll call tonight to remind ourselves of who we are and just get the new year off for a fresh start. So, Darlene, I'm hoping that you could do a roll call for everyone here and remotely in Concord. Hi, everybody. I hope you can see us all right.
Yep, sure can.
Excellent. All right. Take it away, Darlene.
Here.
Person.
Blackwell.
Here.
Butt.
Here.
Kohler.
Here.
Cruz. Glover. Green. Harrop. Higgins.
Here.
Benales.
Present.
Lyman.
Here.
McCaskill. McCullough. McEntee. Wellner.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Russell. Schroeder. Schwartzman.
Here.
Sears.
Here.
Toms. Here. Atson.
Here.
Trotter.
Here.
Wagon Connect.
Here.
Carlston.
Was that Carlston?
Yes.
Yes, here.
Withy.
Here.
And Director Athas just joined us. All right. Very good. Thank you so much. All right, so the first item on our agenda is our swearing in of new board members. And Dawn, I'm assuming you're going to take charge of this item.
Yes, I'm going to take charge of this item, and I want to welcome our newest board members. We have Director Sue Higgins joining us from the city of Oakley, who's in the Concord location. Thanks so much for being with us. We're excited to have you join the board. We also have Director John Wiener from Tiburon. Thank you so much. I have that looking like an I. Wellner, very good. That is an L. Great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining, and we're excited to have you joining the board. We also have a new director, Maureen Toms from Pinole, over in the corner there. Thanks for being with us here. And then last but not least, we have Rich Carlston who is joining us from Walnut Creek and the Concord location. Just heard him say here. So great to have you here, Rich. Thanks so much for joining us. So we're going to do a 4-person swearing in. So if you all will stand up, please, and repeat after me. Yeah, 2 people in each location. This is exciting. So repeat after me, if you will. I state your name, do solemnly swear.
I, Sue Higgins, do solemnly swear
That I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
United States and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic. Yeah, it's brand new.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
That I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duty
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the
Thank
board.
you. Welcome, everybody. Very well done.
Good job. Go back. We have a picture of us. Here we go.
So,
All righty. So next on our agenda are board announcements. Does anyone have anything they'd like to contribute? Anybody? No? All right. Seeing none, public open time for items not on our agenda. Welcome, and come on up to the microphone and let us know your name. I'm not sure that microphone is on. Hold on a second.
I'm Pam Reeves, and I'm co-chair of the Climate Action Working Group for Marine Conservation League, and I'm a very large, huge fan of MCE. And I'm here just to have a suggestion, a strong suggestion that in one of your new programs that's going to be rolled out around infrastructure for EV charging stations, that there'll be a very thorough place and plan for getting customers on board that that really will have no incentive to do it because they unless they know it's the right thing, and it's what you have planned is very, very important. And so there's some gaps missing, especially since Paul just left, to carry that forward. So thank you.
Thanks for your good work promoting electric vehicles. Is there anyone from the public in the Concord location who would like to speak? It was on, thank you. Is there anyone from the public in the Concord location who would like to speak?
No problem.
No.
No problem.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. So, yes, I'm sorry, would you like to speak too? Please come on up. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Kelsey Morales, and I am actually a graduate student from Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, and I am doing my thesis research and writing a case study on MCE. I'm looking at how at the community renewable energy movement at large and focusing specifically on community choice aggregate programs and wanting to understand the democratic and justice piece of this work. I had the privilege of speaking with Vice Chair Tom Butt this afternoon, and am reaching out to you all to see if anyone else would be interested in being an interview participant for my work. And yeah, I guess I could leave you an email address, but I'm also planning on sitting through the meeting and would be happy to talk to anyone after the meeting if you're interested. But would love to capture your story and hear more about your work being on this board and how you came to this work in general. So thank you.
Great. So I have a few items to cover this evening. This is actually our very first meeting of the year, and it's hard to believe that because a lot has been happening just over the last 6 weeks. So I'm going to move quickly through a few report items, and then we're going to have 3 updates this evening later in the agenda from a few of our department heads, letting you know what we're up to in different sectors of MCE. But just a quick few overview items. Just wanted to remind folks that we're connected via webinar from a remote location in Concord. And this Concord location is actually in the same building that MCE's office is going to be in. It will be on a different floor, and it's in renovation mode right now. But ultimately, we'll be continuing to meet in that space going forward, but the space will be on a different floor soon. So just reminder to make sure that we're hearing from folks in that office as we move through the items. Also remember, this is just a reminder to our board members to remember to state your name when you speak. That'll help with the remote locations and helping us all stay connected. And I wanted to also introduce Sam Kang, who is the newest member of the Pacific Energy Advisors team. Sam, could you stand up? Sam has made an appearance already at a couple of our technical committee meetings. So he's had a chance to meet some of you, but not the full board. So I just wanted to make sure you all got to meet Sam. We're really excited to have him on the PEA team joining Brian, John, and Kirby. So welcome, Sam. I wanted to let folks know that MCE partnered with Greenlining Institute and CalCCA to host a really amazing supplier diversity symposium. Each of you should have a copy of the program in front of you. And this is really neat to kind of flip through and get a feel for what was covered at the event. It was really successful. We want to thank Director Butt for helping make sure we were able to use the Richmond City Hall for this event. It was heavily attended. We had over 150 participants from around the state, including representatives from different CCAs, representatives from industry groups. We also had some folks from the CPUC and the CEC, and a couple of legislative representatives. We had Senator Ricardo Lara from Southern California come up to give our keynote address, Senator Skinner from our own district, and also a big thanks to Supervisor Glover for kicking off the meeting with a really warm welcome, and then Councilmember Merrill Kraft from our city of Pittsburgh. She moderated a really moving panel that included future build graduates and Richmond build graduates talking about their ability to work in the green collar sector with MCE programs. Programs from the event are for you to take with you, and let me know if you have questions. We also have photos and a really neat summary and news release that was circulated to you all at the end of January on that event. My next announcement is I wanted to make sure folks were aware that the MCE Solar One project, which is a 10.5 megawatt project on 60 acres at a brownfield site in Richmond, is now completed. We spent about 4.5 years working on this project, so it's been a long time coming, and we're really excited to report that it is currently delivering power onto the grid and is now part of our portfolio. And we are planning a ribbon cutting for this event that will take place in April, sometime near Earth Day. So keep an eye out for an announcement about that once we have a date pinned down. We'll certainly let you know. Next, I wanted to let you all know that we were successful in the zoning permit approval meeting for the San Rafael approval of our electric vehicle solar photovoltaic project that's planned for the parking lot here at the San Rafael office. And so that project appears to be moving forward, and we're hoping to have construction underway within the next couple of months and completion by July. Wanted to let folks know that the new Pittsburgh call center is up and running. This is a call center that is the first stop for any calls that come in on the MCE call center line. We have 11 full-time staff working out of that office. And we'll be planning a tour probably in March when we have a little lower call volumes happening there that we'll invite folks to if you want to come and check out the Pittsburgh call center. Some of the graduates from our Richmond Build training program got hired and are actually working there right now, so we're really excited about that. These folks are living in the community that's being served by MCE, so it's great that they're able to be answering calls for MCE and answering questions from our customers. Next, I wanted to let folks know that the new Concord office is under construction, being renovated. In the meantime, we have free use of a temporary space in the same building at 1 Concord Center. That's the address. This is primarily being used for our community outreach staff. We have about 5 or so staff there on an average daily basis. And the construction that's occurring now in the final space that MCE will be moving to includes lighting, flooring, and some wall removal. We should have move-in at that office by May 1st, and that will allow us to hold our board meetings within that space as well. So I think our video capabilities will be improved somewhat, although this is working pretty well. So we're excited about that, but should be getting a little bit better. Most of the renovation work that's happening at that building is being covered by the landlord. So we're excited about that as well. And the last update I wanted to give folks is that the 2017 Ad Hoc Contracts Committee held their last meeting in January, and we want to really thank them for their service. 2017 was actually a really busy year with contracting. We had a lot of power supply to buy for our existing customers and our new customers, and I just want to thank them for their service. Later tonight on the agenda, we'll be looking for folks to sign up for the 2018 Ad Hoc Contracts Committee, and we look forward to having some volunteers on that committee. I think this year will be probably not quite as busy, but still busy. So keep an eye out for that item. And that concludes my report.
Any questions or comments on the CEO's report? From Concord, anyone have any questions or comments? All right, great. Seeing none, thank you, Dawn. That's great. Let's move on to the consent calendar. Excuse me. We have 2 items on consent. The first is the approval of the meeting minutes from our November 16, 2017 meeting. And the second item is approved contracts update. Any questions or comments from any board member on?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I didn't understand on the contracts, the second page near the bottom, the January 2018. System resource adequacy, we have credits of 12,500 and 123,000. I don't quite understand credits for that, how that works.
And would you state your name for our record?
I'm sorry, Scott Perkins, Santa Monica.
Thank you, Scott.
Scott Perkins, Santa Monica.
Yeah, we're going to have Brian from PEA respond to that question. I think you're correct in noticing it's negative, which means we had an excess of resource adequacy, which we sold, and Brian can say more about that.
Well, and that's exactly it. There was an excess of resource adequacy.
I think Mike's not on. Yeah. Should be right at the bottom.
There it is. I was going to say, Dawn's absolutely right. There was excess resource adequacy procured for those months, and we were able to sell it to another CCA, Monterey Bay Community Power, that needed the resource adequacy in those months. So that's what that is reflective of, and they'll be paying MCE for that resource adequacy.
Similar question, Scott Perkins again. The sale of energy, we bought energy from Apple Valley, we're selling power back to Apple Valley and Lancaster?
Yes, similarly to the resource adequacy, the renewable energy, as we were getting further into 2017, as actual generators were delivering, combined with actual usage for the year, there was a long position, so there was excess renewable energy that MC was able to sell at the end of the year to offset some of their costs because of that excess they had.
Yeah, and I would just like to add to that it does seem a little weird. Why would we buy more than we need? I think Brian just did a good job of explaining what happened with the renewable energy. The other factor that comes into play with resource adequacy is that sometimes we actually have resource adequacy assigned to us by the utilities on a monthly basis. And so we have to plan and make sure that we're fully covered on the year ahead basis, but then we will receive these allocations and we can't control how much is assigned to us, and we often end end up with a small, long position in that case, and we need to find a place to sell it off. So that's kind of an issue that we'd like to improve in the way that resource adequacy is handled at the CPUC. We're engaged in the resource adequacy proceeding to bring up issues like that, but it is something that we're dealing with on a routine basis.
Scott,
And
did
Don,
that,
this is Dave.
sorry, Scott, did that address your question sufficiently?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Dave Trotter from Moraga. Don, the question I have is are the prices that we sold this energy at, are they less or more than what we paid for it in the first place?
Yeah, we can't get into exact pricing, but I will say that they are aligned with what we are seeing in the market. So when we're doing a sale of energy, we are often in the market at the same time buying energy. So we have a really good sense of what the current market is, and that's typically what we offer to sell it at. Do you want to say any more about that, Brian?
That's absolutely right. I think you look at it two ways. What's, the cost of the portfolio, right? Obviously, you want to, sell at cost if possible, but in some instances, the price that market's demanding drives, what you can get. So usually you're trying to get cost to kind of net everything out, but in some cases, if market's lower, you have to get market price. And ultimately, it's, you want to sell whatever excess you can to benefit, your ratepayer at the end of the day. That's what we try to do on these transactions here.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Great, okay. Any other questions, comments? Terrific, all right.
I just wanted to,
Yes, Sasha.
South Street McEntee Mill Valley, I just wanted to abstain from the minutes
Okay,
since I
great,
wasn't there.
all right.
And I'll do the same, Andrew Mucker, San Rafael.
All right.
And Maureen Toms will also abstain from the minutes.
Any other abstentions?
You need a motion?
Barbara Kohler would like to abstain from the minutes.
I do need a motion right now. I'm taking all the abstentions. I'm curious to see if anyone has actually read the minutes.
My alternate was, this is Greg Lyman from El Cerrito. My alternate was there, so I will also abstain.
And John, did you want to add your name to the list?
Abstain since I was not on the board at the time.
Well, you- okay. Anybody else?
And Ramon, I'm going to move consent items 1 and 2.
Thank you very much. And we have a second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposition? All right, very good. Consent's approved. So next on our item is a resolution honoring our board member Emmet O'Donnell. And if the person is here to be honored, we usually will read through the resolution and make a big woo-wah. Since Emmet is not here, I'm not sure if we want to do that, although Dawn is saying maybe she does.
I actually have a comment on the last item. We were told by our general counsel that we need to do a roll call on that last item because of the remote location.
Oh, no, are you kidding me? Our general counsel can be such a challenging, sometimes you just hate advice from lawyers. What can I say? All right, so let's do a redo. We have our motion, but let's do a roll call.
Apis? Yes. Bailey?
Yes.
Pearson? Blackwell?
Have to abstain.
So we have, let's just be clear. So we have 2 items. This is a little tricky. We probably should do this twice. Beth, would you like to weigh in on this? We have 2 items on our consent calendar. We have the list of people who are abstaining on the minutes. Do you think we should do 2 separate votes?
I'm not concerned about the item that's unanimous, so if we just cover the abstentions, I think that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, just one. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, but abstain from the minutes.
Hara? Yes. Higgins? Higgins? Higgins?
Director Higgins,
I'm abstaining from the minutes, but I'm okay with the contract.
Great, thank you.
Canales?
I also abstain from the minutes. I approve of the contract.
Lyman?
Yes on C2, abstain from C1.
McCaskill,
Yes.
McCullough,
Yes, abstain on the minutes.
McEntee,
Abstain on the minutes, aye on the contracts.
Wellner,
Abstain on the minutes, yes on the contract.
Perkins,
Yes on both?
Russell,
Yes.
Schroeder, absent. Schwartzman,
Yes on both?
Sears,
Yes.
Toms,
Abstain from the minutes, yes on the contracts.
Tatson,
Yes on both?
Trotter,
Yes on both.
Wagon Connect,
Yes.
Carlston,
Staying on minutes, yes on contract.
Withy.
Yes.
Very good, thank you, everyone. All right, so now moving on to our resolution honoring our former board member Emmet O'Donnell. I don't think we need to read through this resolution, and we certainly said nice things about Emmet while he was here to receive them. We're glad to have you, John, stepping in for into Emmett's shoes and bringing your own shoes with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
But we do miss Emmet, and I'm glad you're doing this resolution. So I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Aye.
Very good,
No.
thank
I have
you.
no idea.
That's the
Would
resolution.
everybody in Concord is abstaining or objecting?
We'll have to do a roll call. Your mic's off.
My mic is too efficient and it keeps going off. So Concord, are you hearing us all right, or do we have challenges here?
No.
You're cutting in and out.
You're cutting in and out.
And that's my
Vote on the
fault.
resolution.
Okay, I'm cutting in and out because my microphone keeps going off, so I'll try to do a better job. All right, so you were all fine with the resolution, yes?
Yes.
Very good. All right, excellent. Good answer. Yeah, good answer, exactly. All right, so let's move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is our proposed fiscal year 2018-19 budget.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I'm David McNeil. I'm the finance manager at MCE, and I'm pleased to present the proposed fiscal 2018-2019 budget. I'm hopeful that folks will be following along with the documentation that is in the board pack. I'm going to keep my comments relatively brief and leave time for questions. So beginning on the left-hand side of the column immediately to the left, you have the budget categories. The next column over shows the 2017-2018 budget that was approved by your board. The next column over is the proposed 2018-19 budget. And then the next two columns represent the variation in dollar and percentage terms. So MCE's revenue is planned to go up to $384 million as a result of the expansion of its service territory beginning in April, and our rates remaining unchanged. So the revenue is basically rates times volume, and that's how we arrive at that number. The cost of energy is planned to be $303 million, leaving net energy revenue of just over $81 million. You'll note that there's an 84% increase year over year in revenue and a 66% year over year increase in cost of energy. And so what's happening here is that obviously revenues are increasing by more than the percentage increase in cost of energy. That relationship reflects a couple of things. One is that we have some higher priced energy contracts that are rolling off. These are legacy contracts, and they've been replaced with less expensive contracts. And then we've been able to go out to the market and procure at prices that are below our average cost of power in order to serve the new communities. So there's the increase in what one might call the gross, in the net energy revenue. That increase would have occurred irrespective of expansion, but the expansion has greatly increased the amount of that increase. Moving down to total operating expenses, Those are coming in at just under 27 million, which represents a 44% increase. And I think what you're seeing there is some economies of scale. So our revenues are going up by much more than our operating expenses, and so things are accordingly going to plan. Moving down to the change in net position, the proposed change in net position is 55.7 million. And that will bring our total net position by the end of the year to about 108 million.
Scroll up.
Do I have a scroll? Thank you. You just go right to the bottom. Great. So as many of you know, MCE has a reserve policy, and the reserve policy basically lays out targets for the net position that are a function of the size of the organization. So although this looks and is a fairly large slug, an increase to our net position, it brings us from what would otherwise be 37% of our reserve target to 78% of our reserve target by the end of this upcoming fiscal year. So that's a great step forward for the organization. Reserves are very important for MCE to project financial strength, to meet our working capital and other obligations, and to have kind of a rainy day reserve in case unforeseen events occur. So I think this is an important step forward for the organization. Are there any questions? I think I'll take questions now on the operating fund budget.
Sashi?
Yeah, one comment. I just wanted to frame one piece of this discussion before we jump into questions and let folks know that this year is actually a little bit different than our standard process, and that is because we typically do our rate setting at the same time that we're doing our budget setting. This year is a little different, and you'll, if you've been at TechCom or XCom, you've gotten updates about this. We've also sent out some emails about this, but to make sure everyone's kind of in the know, the process that we are used to, where PG&E does an update of their rates at the end of each calendar year and puts new rates into effect on January 1, that did not happen along the same time frame this year. We actually are expecting that typical rate change to take place on March 1st, and we're expecting to see those proposed rates. We're actually expecting them today, so hopefully we'll be seeing those soon. We don't anticipate, based on the information that we've received in recent months, we don't anticipate any big changes in PG&E's rates, and of course that's one factor that we take into consideration among other factors when we're doing our rate setting. And since that factor is not yet known, we've kind of delayed the time frame of our rate setting process. So the budget that David is proposing is based on the rates that have been in effect really at the end of last year and continue to be in effect today. But it is possible that we will come back to you with some adjustments if needed, if there is a need to go through the standard rate setting process in the next month or two. So I just wanted to give that caveat, and if folks have more questions about rates, we also have John DeLisi here who's happy to answer questions, and we can get into that if there are any related questions on rates.
Right. Sashi?
Sashi McEntee, City Mill Valley. David, you knew what I was going to ask, didn't you? So thank you for going right to the reserves, which is what I was going to ask about. So I'll just go ask another level of detail there. So the reserves target then for this year would be 64 million, which is the 6.6 million in 90 days operating expenses and 58 in 15% reserves. Is that right? Am I calculating that right? I have 64. Is that wrong? You're looking at me funny.
The reserve target based on the 12-month forward period is 130 million.
130? So what did I do wrong here? So
I can't answer that question. So this will
90
bring us
days
to
operating plus 15% of projected revenues.
Yeah, and the operating expenses, again, that includes the cost of energy and also
That's what I did.
total
That's
operating
what I did.
expenses.
You know what?
Yeah.
And I did that before too.
And I have to say that we are going to bring an amendment to the reserve policy to the board in March.
Yeah.
And we'll clarify that point so
Great.
that doesn't
Okay,
happen
great.
again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I remember you correcting me on this before, so I apologize for that. Okay, so, and so where are we on, I know it's broken out into available cash and contingency rate stabilization, so where are we on those two numbers? You said we were at 76%, is that what you said? We would be at 76%?
Right at the moment, we're at 37% of our target, and then with this addition to the net position, that would bring us to 78% of our target.
Okay, and then, but so how does it break out in terms of, this is the budget rather than the balance sheet, so where are we on available cash versus, so how do you?
Refer to the subcomponents of the, I think I have those numbers with me. I'm not sure that, let me see. So, I don't have those numbers with me.
What did you say, 76?
Yeah, 78.
78, I'm sorry. And then a small question, so why did we move PG&E service?
Director, can you get your mic on?
Okay, thank you. Why did we move PG&E service fees out of the cost of energy? I mean, it's a small number, but just curious.
I think it's just more appropriate to have it down in operating expenses.
It's actually a customer billing fee, so it doesn't relate to the cost of energy directly.
Okay, yeah, it had been in there previously.
It had been in there previously,
Yeah.
and we took it out.
Okay. And I just wanted to comment, thank you again for relating it to the reserves and that we're going to bringing that item back because this is just noting that our operating expenses have just a little more than doubled in the last 2 years. And so it's important that we have reserves to be able to sustain the organization through unexpected times.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just have, this is Barbara Kohler, Fairfax. I just had a question on rates, and that we don't expect PG&E to change their rates. I thought that they were charging the closure of Diablo Canyon over to the ratepayers. I thought they got approval for that. No? Oh, yes, okay. I was just checking if it was still on.
Yeah, it's on. We can hear you. Yeah, the Diablo Canyon decision is not going to be directly impacting rates this year, and we'll be hearing more about the outcome of that decision later.
Okay, thank you.
Rupert.
Rupert Russell.
There you go. Oh, yeah, you're good.
Am I?
You're on.
This is Rupert Russell from Ross. Once we have a full year with the expanded communities included, how much of the revenue is going to be? Because essentially this is 6 months worth, roughly.
No, that's 12. So we're beginning.
Well, no, but I mean in terms of the expanded communities, they're only going to be taken into account for about 6 months, aren't they?
We're enrolling them. So our fiscal year is April 1st to March the 31st. We're enrolling the new communities in April, all of the communities in April. So we'll get 11 months of revenue full pop, and then there's a sort of gradual. They don't all come in on April 1st. They sort of roll in during the month of April. So on average, we'll get about 11 and a half months, you could say, of revenue from those new communities.
So,
Thanks.
great. So Concord office, unfortunately, I can't see you on the screen, but is there anyone there who has a question for David at this point? Okay.
Apparently no.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, David, you want to go forward?
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the other 3 funds that MCE administers. If we can, is there another page? Terrific. So there's the Energy Efficiency Fund. In this fund, the expenditures always equal the revenues. It's basically we're reimbursed for our costs by the California Public Utilities Commission and more technically through the ratepayer funds that are allocated to energy efficiency. It looks like the fund is increasing. In fact, what's happening is some of the revenues and expenses have been shifted from the previous year. So there's no in fact increase in expenditures expected in the upcoming year. The other two funds are the Local Renewable Energy Development Fund and the Renewable Energy Fund. There's no activity plan for the Renewable Energy Reserve Fund, I beg your pardon, I misspoke. For the Local Renewable Energy Development Fund, these funds represent the revenues into that fund come via transfer from the operating fund. They represent 50% of the deep green premium revenue. And so you can see a big increase in that revenue resulting from all of the great work and effort people have made to enroll in the Deep Green program. And we're going to use those funds to continue to develop local renewable projects. We don't have a project right in the past. Historically, all those funds have flowed into the MCE Solar One project. We don't have a new project right now that we're working on. But when we do have a new project and we need additional funds to support that, we'll come back to your board and ask for authorization to spend on that project. Any questions about any of the three funds? Terrific. I want to just take a moment to highlight, we presented, and I presented this budget, proposed budgets to the executive committee. I just wanted to highlight a couple of adjustments that were made to the budgets that were presented to XCOM. The capital outlay in the operating fund budget was increased by $217,000, and a decrease of $228,000 was I put into the Local Renewable Energy Development Fund. And basically what's happening is it's a little bit of shifting of expenses from one fund to another. We have an amazing EV PV project in our parking lot, which many of you may know about. So we're going to put in charging stations and a canopy. We were going to had some thought about using the Local Renewable Energy Development Fund for that project, but instead we're going to take it out of the operating fund. So I just wanted to highlight that. I also wanted to just correct an oversight in my staff report. Under fiscal impact, I wrote that the budgeted revenues and expenditures from the Local Renewable Energy Development Fund offset. In fact, they don't. We made that adjustment, and as you can see, the revenues exceed the expenditures from that fund, and as a result, the fund balance is expected to increase by $228,000. That concludes my remarks.
Great, thank you, David. Any questions, Sloan?
Yes, Scott Perkins, San Ramon, Concord. How do you estimate the energy revenue if we haven't set our rates?
The energy revenues are based on our current rates and then applied to a projection of our load in each of the upcoming months during our next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Don Tatson from Lafayette. On that same, what are you assuming is going to be the opt-out rate for the new communities?
10%.
As you project load?
There's an assumed opt-out rate of 10%.
And is that above or below what our average is to date?
Well, it's about what it was on the last enrollment, which occurred in September of 2016. So we use that as the benchmark, and we're certainly hoping to surpass that.
Anyone else from Concord with a question or a comment? Quiet. Sloan, you're on.
Thank you. Sloan Bailey from Corte Madera. Just wanted to point out that at a committee meeting, we did review the budget and had some questions, and with the exceptions that David pointed out here tonight. And David, can you confirm otherwise that the budget you presented as matches what we did at executive committee?
It does.
Okay, so with that comment and those exceptions, we do recommend it to the larger board, and unless there's other comments, I'll make a motion that we do so now. Approve it.
Super, appreciate the motion.
I'll make a second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Okay, very good.
Beth,
Thank
do we
you.
need to roll call that, or we're good?
Don't encourage her. We have to roll call everything because we're at remote sites.
Concur with Concord that it was unanimous.
Turn on your microphone. You'd like Concord to concur
Yeah,
that it
if-
was unanimous?
Yeah, if Concord could confirm that it was a unanimous vote on that end.
It was unanimous. It was unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Showing that flexibility.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, David. All right, so moving on to item 7 on our agenda, it's our new board member additions to committees. And I think we have 2 committees, yeah. One that we're addressing tonight, the creation of the 2018 Ad Hoc Contracts Committee, and then we have an opening on TechCom, and that's it, right? Beth, did you want to give us more legal advice for the moment?
I am going to give you more legal advice for the moment. Sorry, I'm full of legal advice tonight. So just as a reminder, as they relate to ad hoc committees, those committees cannot contain a quorum of any other committee of the board. And so since Fort Greene is moving off technical committee, we don't have that problem currently, but that's just something to be aware of as people are selecting themselves for those committees.
Great, thank you.
Great. So I just wanted to give a quick introduction here. So what you have before you in your packet is a listing of which directors are currently on which committee. Our ad hoc committees really can only exist for a year, and then they need to either disappear or be reformed if there's a new need. So the primary need that we have right now is the formation of an ad hoc contract committee. I'm going to say a little bit about that committee, but first I'll also point out that we do have room on the technical committee for another member or 2. Fort Greene will be rotating off as he's served on a lot of committees for many years, and he wants to make room for some other folks. So if you have an interest in technical committee, we especially encourage folks representing a county or a city within a county that doesn't currently have representation on a committee. So we'd love to hear those volunteers first on either the technical committee or the ad hoc contracts committee. And before I hear a resounding a number of you volunteering to be on committees, I just want to say a little bit about how great the Ad Hoc Contracts Committee meeting is. This is really an opportunity to get involved in some of the day-to-day procurement activities that we undertake here at the operational level. Typically, the Ad Hoc Contracts Committee is made up of 6 to 8 members. And we cover really the process that's unfolding right now is our open season request for proposal, where we're looking for power supply under short-term or long-term contracts. Also this year, we're looking for bids on battery storage, and we're looking for bids on local renewable projects that might be mid-sized, between 1 and 5 megawatts, or actually even larger. So we have a lot of types of resources that may be bid into us under this open season cycle. The contracts committee is typically called on to do some vetting when we're in the process of shortlisting our bidders, when we're in the process of negotiating and fine-tuning some of the key commercial and legal terms. And the Ad Hoc Contracts Committee also is sometimes called upon to make a recommendation to our technical committee to approve a contract. So the meeting frequency is, in the last year, we actually were meeting almost every month, which isn't standard. I think that this year we wouldn't see any more frequent meetings than once a month. We may see a schedule that's a little less frequent, maybe every other month. And we can set the meeting time based on the availability of the meeting members. So with that brief overview, does anyone have questions about the Ad Hoc Contracts Committee?
Maureen Thomas. A question about the location of these committee meetings. Does it rotate between Marin and Concord?
Yeah, the location of these meetings would rotate, just as we do with our other board meetings. We also allow remote dial-in. Because the ad hoc committee meetings are not open to the public, the logistics can be a little simpler as far as allowing dial-in. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Sue Higgins, Concord. Do these meetings typically meet during business hours, 9 to 5?
Typically, they do meet during business hours, but that's not necessarily a requirement. We would need to go with the really the majority of what works for the members that volunteer.
Thank you.
I'd also like to note that we do have one volunteer already, which is Director Don Tatson. And if there aren't any more questions, oh, we do have one.
I don't have a question, but I'm on, or currently was on it, or the previous year, and I'll volunteer again, but I'd like to point out for anybody who are interested, Greg, you had no difficulty calling in, right? It was fine?
Yeah, this is Greg Lyman from El Cerrito. I did participate by phone to the Ad hoc Contracts Committee, and it is not difficult to follow along the conversation. Materials were provided in advance so that I could participate in that way. So whether it's business hours or evening hours, I don't think it's easy to participate by dialing in. And most of the time, the meetings were an hour to 90 minutes in length.
And is Don, are you with us today? He's not here today, right? Or he is? Hey, Don, and you didn't have any trouble, Don, you didn't have any trouble calling in. It worked out all right, didn't it?
The calling in was fine. My conflict is I have a standing meeting on the third Thursday of each month at 9.
You know,
So I was always calling in when you were an hour and a half into the meeting.
So for what it's worth, I think we frankly have a really good, with the possible exception of myself, a very skilled ad hoc contracts committee. And we're sorry to lose Emmet, but for sure, anybody who's interested, it's a good committee. It's fascinating. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but I'd like to do it again, Dawn, and I'd like to encourage anybody who's in interest, especially who hasn't done it before, please come.
Is this Rich Carlston? I'd be glad to volunteer on behalf of the city of Walnut Creek.
So this is Barbara Kohler, Fairfax. I want to drop off because I think it's a great opportunity for some of the newer folks to join, and I want to say I was on it, and really the staff are excellent. The work is great, and it really contributes to the value of this organization. So I'd encourage anybody to join.
Thank you, Barbara. Rich, I'm not sure if they heard you.
Yes.
Let me try it again, a little bit louder. Rich Carlston from Walnut Creek. I'll volunteer for the committee.
Yes, thank you so much, Director Carlston. I've got your name down here. Thank you so much for volunteering. That'll be great.
Can I ask? Go ahead, Concord.
This is Scott Perkins, San Ramon. I would volunteer, but I won't meet on Thursdays.
That is perfectly fine.
If the meetings are on Thursdays, I'm going to withdraw my name.
Okay, Director Perkins, we're happy to have you on the committee, and we're happy to avoid Thursdays.
This is Greg Lyman, El Cerrito, a current member on the ad hoc contracts. What is the current count of that group?
I currently have 4 volunteers.
Oh, so you're not including, oh yes, because you've lost Ford.
Yeah, I'm not referencing the last year.
So the 4 you have are what, 4?
I have Director Tatson, Director Bailey, Director Carlston, and Director Perkins so far.
And you should stay on, Greg.
I will
We're all
reluctantly serve, yes. And with the understanding that if you did have 6, I probably would not, because of my professional relationship. So, for full disclosure, I work for the City and County of San Francisco at the Public Utilities Commission, which is a competing CCA. So I'm not dealing with any of the contracts for electricity at the PUC, but my current assignment has the potential for me to be required to deal with contracts for power at the City and County of San Francisco. So I'm more than willing to keep serving, but I may have to drop off at some point from a professional perspective.
Okay, do we have any other interested folks for this committee?
Dawn?
Yeah.
Kevin Harrell from Larkspur. If you still need someone, I'm happy to serve.
And I'm Maureen Toms. I'd be interested in participating, mostly by phone, though.
Okay, Okay.
So how many can you have on the committee at this point, Don? You're at 7 at least now, I think, right? Which
Yeah,
is
I mean,
okay.
from a legal perspective,
Yeah.
we can't reach a quorum of our
Right,
board. So
right.
we do have room if there's a lot more interest. I currently have 7 volunteers.
And it seems like a pretty good mix of some folks who've been on, served previously, and then a group of new people. And it's nice to have a little continuity, but also the new folks coming on. So it seems like a pretty good group. But is there anyone else who would be interested in serving? And and we still need somebody on TechCom, so don't spend all your chits to volunteer yet. All right, hearing none, I think you have a really good ad hoc rate setting committee now. Yeah,
I think we need a motion to make that official.
all right. Who wants to make a motion?
This is Don Tatson. I'll move that.
Greg Lyman, second.
Thanks very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? That's approved.
Unanimous and concurrent.
Great, thank you.
Great, and before we move to the next item, are there any folks that are interested in participating in the technical committee meeting?
Technical committee meeting is the best, despite what Don said about the rate setting committee.
Are you starting from scratch, or are you using this list that's here?
No, let me clarify, sorry about that. So the technical committee is a standing committee. We have 2 standing committees, the executive committee and the technical committee. This committee has an existing set of board members that are listed here before you in your packet. We have 8 board members listed here. Director Green is rotating off, leaving a vacant seat. We also have room for a couple of others if there is overwhelming interest. The technical committee meets on a monthly basis the first Thursday of the month at 9 a.m. We are looking at potentially adjusting that time to a 8:30 start on Thursday or possibly on Wednesday, so that's a little bit up in the air. But it's also a really great committee, and we tend to meet every month. Every once in a while, we get a month off if there's not a lot going on. But the technical committee is actually responsible for approving the bulk of our power supply transactions, and is the committee where we bring presentations about battery storage, electric vehicles, anything related to technical topics, renewable energy, greenhouse gas emissions, that sort of thing.
This is the innovation committee.
That's a good way of putting it. And anyone who's on the committee could make a pitch for how great it is, recruit some colleagues.
Sure, this is Greg Lyman from El Cerrito. I will say that TechCom has been eye-opening on some of the technologies that have come through over the last 2 to 2.5 years. It really is interesting. It also is the principal location where contracts are addressed as well. So if you are interested in some of the goings-on of the organization, this is definitely one of the ones to be involved in. And I wanted to point out that this one actually currently has 3 meeting locations. We do a remote location in San Francisco. So there is with a proper noticing, there is the opportunity to potentially do it at multiple locations. So I've participated by webinar. We usually do it by webinar. I've participated remotely by webinar at the advertised location in San Francisco. So there is opportunities here also for potentially East County to participate by making a city hall available to the public and you meeting from a city hall location. So I want to put a shout out there for this committee and also, to increase the number of locations where we hold this meeting. Thank you.
This is Scott Perkins, San Ramon. I've been meeting from San Ramon the last couple of times using the San Ramon City Hall.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out and for making that room available. I think that's it's very generous, and just as a reminder, any remote location for a standing committee like TechCom needs to ensure that there's access for the public as well. So it's a little more planning needs to go into it than for an ad hoc, but absolutely we can accommodate remote locations when there's certainty and availability for the public, as Director Perkins noted, so thank you.
John, can we suck you in on that committee?
I think I'm going to observe for a little while before I join any committees. Thank you.
All right, we'll try it next board meeting.
All right, so I'm not hearing any volunteers now, but folks are interested later, just reach out to me and we can make a change at a future meeting.
Yeah,
And I think we
absolutely.
can move on.
Super, great, thank you. All right, so let's move on. Our next item is streamlining public works contracting. Beth, are you taking the lead on this?
Thank you. So as Dawn noted in her executive officer report at the beginning of the meeting, we have a couple of areas where public works are going on by MCE. Those are here in the parking lot, which is the electric vehicle solar voltaic project. The parts that are specifically related to public works include milling and paving of the parking lot, fence demolition and fence construction, and some other things that are not covered by the overall project scope. The other one is preparation for the new office in Concord. So there's a very short timeline for the items that need to be installed there, and one of the examples of the things that are our deliverables are installing of the wiring in that location. So so that's the context of this, and if you could pull up. So what's before you is the adoption of the Uniform Public Code, construction code. Basically, this allows us more flexibility in our bidding and executing of contracts. It streamlines the process a great deal. So if you go on to the next page. So here's our planned project. So soon you'll be able to park under this and plug your EVs there. Go on to the next slide. And so you'll see that there is some demolition of work of a fence. There's some planting of new trees and vegetation, and those all fall under the scope of public works. Go on to the next slide. And so here are some of the short turnarounds here with the project completion at the end of June for the Concord office. One example of this is we were just notified today that our wiring will need to be in and complete within a month. And under the current public contracting code, there are a lot of requirements that go into that. So if I could go on to the next slide. So one of the things that we've run into for these projects are the fact that the amount of paperwork that we are throwing at small contractors is voluminous, and the amount of work, both legal time and staff time, it's very time consuming. So under the public contracting code, any public works project over $4,000 needs to go through what's called an informal bidding process, which is actually more formal than you would expect. And then anything over $10,000 requires a formal bidding process. So pretty much anything over $10,000, an $11,000 project basically requires an 83-page bid packet. So if you could go on to the next slide. So there is a common solution to this. There's a venue for adopting the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. It's an acronym soup, but it is very useful. It allows just more fast tracking of projects and less bureaucracy, better outcomes, and better costs. So if you go to the next slide. So this is a comparison of the public contracting code versus the UPCCAA. So under the lowest level, you can get informal bids, which is what we generally do for any other contract that we enter into that's not public works. And then the higher bid limits under the UPCCAA is actually between $45,000 and $175,000 that you can do informal bidding. And then the formal bidding requirement kicks in at $175,000. Next slide. So there are this is utilized by a lot of communities, including many on on our board here. So I've listed those out here. This doesn't include special districts or any other entity that you all might be a part of. Go on to the next slide. So there's two elements to this. One is electing to become subject to the act, which allows for these higher bidding limits. And then the other element relates to what are the informal bidding procedures that need to be utilized by our agency. In this case, this is the standard form that is provided by the state for adoption of this ordinance, and so that governs only the informal bidding procedures. So I think that's my last slide, if you move on to the next. Are there any questions?
Barbara, yes, thank you.
Barbara Kohler, Fairfax. So when this came up at the executive committee, there was a lot more information, and one of the things I mentioned is while Fairfax follows this, because we don't have a list of qualified bidders, we do it at much lower levels than what the UPCCA calls for. And at the time in XCOM, rather than having a list of qualified bidders, MCE staff proposed that you would just send it out to construction trade journals. And that's really not what that law contemplates. And so the reason why you have what's called informal bidding is that you already have a list of qualified contractors. So you still get bid packages, but they're much smaller because you already have information. So at the time, I think, Elizabeth, you or Dawn mentioned that the concern was some of the small contractors. So I would propose, because I'm concerned about the full board not realizing that there's a little more to this picture than just the legal issues. It's more about how you really deal with this on a day-to-day basis, is that my proposal would be that we start developing a list of qualified contractors, but then also develop a more streamlined approach for small businesses. So we could do kind of a hybrid approach so that we're able to protect the agency by making sure we do have the right information, but also being flexible enough to be able to bring in the small contractors and move them along more quickly, because I know that was some of your concerns. So that's a long-winded sort of question, comment, statement.
Yeah, there's a lot to go from there. So a couple of things I would note is I looked at your question, I did research on it, and in the past 2 years or so, they have stopped requiring a list of qualified bidders. So cities and towns no longer have to hold this list. And one example that I've seen, particularly in the county of Marin, which we refer to pretty frequently, is they have a component where entities that want to receive notices of public works happening with the county are basically added to that list. And so in addition to the trade journals that you send to, you also send to those entities as well. And that allows for a lot of outreach to local businesses, businesses within our communities to do that work. So I think that to the extent that, we go down this path, which is what I do recommend, we do have an excellent opportunity to reach out to businesses that are small, minority-owned, women-owned. Obviously, we can't give any bid preferences to any of those, but we can really reach out to those communities and ensure that they know about the opportunities that we have.
So can I also add that in addition to that, we can build a list. So I think that's a nice, efficient solution that can happen in parallel. There's no, you don't have to do one or the other. So.
Okay, and I mean, that's good information. One piece that I would say is the difference with the county of Marin is that they have pretty massive procurement manual, which I know seems daunting to look at, but people could be directed to a specific page that works rather than looking at whatever it was, 90 pages or 80 pages. It was huge. So I think they may be unique. I doubt that most of the cities and towns have something like that. But, so what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so with regards to the procurement manual, that's an excellent question. That is actually something that we are working on internally here. So right now what we have is, we have a series of different processes that we follow internally, protocols adopted by the board, rules, regulations, et cetera. Right now, those are a bit dispersed, and what we found, we reference the County of Marin, so that's the County of Marin. The reason why we're referencing them in particular is they are actually the lead agency designated under our JPA. So when we formed, the rules that we follow are essentially those applicable to the County of Marin. The County of Marin hired a consultant to develop a really, what I think to be an excellent example of a procurement manual. And that's something that we are pulling together on our end, but that having the procurement manual is really more of a reference point, yes, for the public, but really more internally for ensuring that folks know what the protocols are, when things need to go up to different committees, what oversight is necessary in certain areas. So that is something that we are developing, but that doesn't replace the need for a bid packet and other things when you have formal bidding requirements.
Can I also add that that type of manual is not part of any action being contemplated tonight? That was included in XCOM just as a reference point for here's something that could be done, but it's not part of this action in any way.
Yeah, I understood that. Thanks for the clarification.
I'm looking at the list of MCE members who already utilize the act. This is hardly, seems like a revolutionary step that's being proposed, all things considered. Was there
Scott Perkins, San Ramon. By the way, that list doesn't include some of the other cities that are general or charter cities. Charter cities can do their own procurement in different ways. A question: when would this ordinance take effect?
Yeah, so there's actually two components of this. To the extent that the resolution is voted out tonight, then we become immediately able to use the UPCCAA, which would be very beneficial to the agency because of the urgent public works that we have going on in both locations. The ordinance tonight would be the first reading of the ordinance, and as you're all aware, we would have the final vote on the ordinance in 30 days, and that would be effective 30 days after that. And just to clarify, the ordinance itself only relates to informal bidding procedures. So those are amounts over $45,000, and every single one of the public works projects that we are working on here at MCE are a lot smaller than $45,000. So, but some of them would exceed $10,000, so then you get into formal bidding territory and significant slowdowns.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Any other questions or comments from the board?
This is Dave Trotter from Moraga. Would it be appropriate to make a motion?
It would be, Dave. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution number 2018-02, electing to become subject to the Uniform Public Cost Accounting Act.
Second, Sue Higgins.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? All right. Beth, do you also need a motion that includes the waiving the full hearing and reading by title only?
Yes, that's exactly right.
All right. Who'd like to make that somewhat longer motion? Thank you.
I'll move that item.
You want a second?
I'm happy to second. Go ahead.
All right. Somebody probably should spell out what this motion is about. Would the maker of the motion?
Yeah, whoever's in Concord who made the motion, and I'll be
Sorry,
happy to second it.
Dave,
This is Dave Trotter. Dave Trotter again. I move that we waive full reading, read by title only, and introduce for first reading ordinance number 2018-01 of the Board of Directors of Marin Clean Energy, establishing informal bidding procedures under the UPCAA.
Thank you, Dave.
And this is Kevin Harrell for Larkspur. I'll second the motion.
Great, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any opposition? All right, that's approved. Thank you, Beth, for your work on that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is a customer programs quarterly update. Good evening. Yes, excuse me?
Aren't we MCE rather than Marine Clean Energy, so why are we still saying? Sorry. I'm just bringing up that, it says Board of Directors of Marine Clean Energy. I thought we got rid of those words and we're MCE.
Yeah, that is a good observation, but legally, we are still Marin Clean Energy. The
Tricky.
board had evaluated earlier on a potential name change, but then decided to not move forward. So
Okay.
while we use everything for MCE, we're still Marin Clean Energy.
Got it.
Thank you.
Actually, let me add to that, that that discussion was kind of put on hold, but no final decision has been made. So we do have an expectation that that'll be coming back to XCOM or another committee sometimes in the next quarter or so.
Okay, thank you.
And now we're going to hear from Alice, who is with our Customer Programs Division and has some exciting things to tell us about what's happening over there in their department.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Alice Stover, and I'm the Manager of Policy and Planning on the Customer Programs team. I'm going to have a brief update on some of our recent activities. So this is our quarterly energy efficiency or customer programs update, which I think a lot of you have seen before. One thing that I think is important to note here, so this is up to date as of the end of Q3 2017, and typically, historically, you can see here, December is always a big month for us. A lot of projects tend to close out at the end of the calendar year, so right now we're actively closing out all of our 2017 projects, so expecting to see some jumps on the efficiency as of the next quarterly update. Next slide, please. So this slide relates to a general update on our low-income families and tenants program. So that is the low-income program that we launched in October. It has two components. One is an add-on rebate to our existing multifamily program. And the second aspect of that is a pilot in fuel switching, so swapping out gas space and water heaters for electric heat pump space and water heaters. And so one of the barriers that we've identified to more of that work being done is a general lack of trained contractors that are able to do that work. So this is a nice example of one of the education activities that we have planned. This is a partnership between us and Sonoma Clean Power. It's an all-day workshop for contractors on heat pumps for space and water heating. Good introduction to how to do that work. Other updates around lift, so we have an EM&V contractor on board who will be doing a lot of measurement and verification around heat pumps to really understand what are some of the emissions that we're avoiding. We've identified a few areas where existing gas water heaters might be emitting more than what we typically account for in just sort of our deemed saving estimates. So in some of these projects, we'll actually be installing monitoring equipment before project completion to measure the old equipment and then also afterwards. So that's exciting. Next slide, please.
Great.
So our seasonal savings pilot, this is a program that we run for customers that have smart thermostats. And the program basically runs an algorithm that slowly adjusts either the heat down or the cooling up, depending on the season, hopefully in a way that's not really noticeable to customers, but can save what we hoped for was around 5%, I think was what we set up to 5% in the marketing materials. So in the winter season, we actually saw 7.5% savings, which was really better than we were expecting. So that was in winter of 2017. Our summer 2017 results were not as high as we were expecting, so we saw 2.7% savings. This pilot is a 2-year pilot. We decided to extend it another year to have a little more information to decide what to do with it. The winter was a big success, so we actually are rolling it out to 10,000 thermostats this year. We did about 3,000 thermostats last year, and that's throughout our expanded service area. So That is important to note for the summer results because our climate zone characteristics change a little bit with the addition of some of our new communities. So I think it'll be really good to have a second year of summer results to see, we might actually see those numbers go up given, you know, the air conditioning demand in some of our newer communities. Also, something we are really excited about is the electric vehicles program. So recently we undertook a study with Fostera that showed a huge increase in expected EVs in our service area, but also a projected real deficit in charging stations to meet the demand that will be created by all of those EVs. And obviously, the timing of when those EVs are charged can have an impact on our energy procurement practices. So some of the goals we have for this program is to meet the demand, the growing demand for charging stations, but also to ensure that those EVs are being charged at an optimal time of the day for our renewable energy goals. So phase one of this program is a partnership with PG&E where they are paying for the build out to the charging station and will be providing rebates for the charger heads. And that's at workplace and multifamily properties. And for locations that can support 10 or more charging heads at one location. So that's a restriction of the PG&E program. So in development is phase two of this program where we want to explore how we can also provide incentives for locations that can't support 10 or more charging heads at a single location, as well as potentially incentives for EVs and also maybe education and awareness around those. So look for more updates as we develop what to do with phase two of this program. Next slide. We just recently launched a grant through the California Energy Commission. It's a Building Energy Optimization Grant. So what this is looking at is how we can deploy distributed energy resources in a targeted way throughout our service area. This tool, there's two efforts that have started. They're sort of the first stages of this. The first one is to collect information to support this distributed energy resources portfolio optimization tool, which would show us how to optimize these distributed energy resources within our service area, but also could be a model for other CCAs to do similar work. And then there'll be 3 demonstration projects related to that. And so we started gathering information about those sites that we can plug into the tool to start to see some results. And just for a sense of scale, that's a $1.7 million grant over 3 years. And then just some other activity. We've been doing some close coordination in Contra Costa County through the Department of Conservation and Development around all of the energy efficiency program providers and making sure that everyone is aware of what everyone else is doing and that our services are really coordinated there. So that's PG&E's programs that are funded through the county, as well as Bay Run, who gets CPUC funding to do energy efficiency programs, and MCE. And then this is really a non-update, but our business plan, which has been in front of the commission for more than a full year, we still don't have an approval on that. So I think the last I heard was hopefully in 3 months we would hear something, but there really is no indication of when that might be coming. Next slide, please. Oh, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alice. That was a great presentation. I think it just goes to show you how much you can get done without a business plan. Any questions for Alice? All right, super. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
All righty, appreciate it. Next is our update on our new enrollment communications.
Good evening, directors. Great to see you. Really excited today to be giving you an update about the outreach that's going on in Contra Costa County. So you saw in your board packets a very comprehensive outreach plan, and that is underway now, lots of work going on, and so I'm going to go ahead and give you an update of what's been happening. Oh,
So we are preparing to enroll 9 new communities in April, and that is representing about 237,000 eligible accounts. So we are pretty much doubling the number of customers we're serving. So we've been very busy.
Is there a microphone on there?
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I'm rusty. Sorry about that. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I was just reminding everyone that we are going to be offering service to customers in these 9 new communities in Contra Costa in the month of April. And there are about 237,000 accounts that are eligible for MCE service. So we are doing our best right now with all of our staff and our community advocates to educate and inform the residents and businesses in those communities so that they have the information needed to make the choice about their service suppliers. One of the first things that we do when we begin service or prepare for service in a new community is form community leader advisory groups. Many of you are probably familiar with those, the lovely acronym CLAG, as we've created those in all of the communities that we've expanded service to. They've been incredibly helpful to us. Really getting that local input is central to being effective with achieving our mission. And so we invite members of the public to join the community leader advisory groups and provide feedback to us on our outreach strategies, our advertising venues, our messaging, helping us to distribute that information and get the word out, and also to promote the meetings that we're attending and hosting. And so with the expansion into Contra Costa County, we have a really large geographic area, quite a bit larger than what we've done in the past. So we've created 3 different community leader advisory groups. And as you can see on the map here, they are dispersed between West, East, and South Contra Costa County. All of the members of the CLAGs are volunteers, and we hosted our first meeting in December. We're rotating the locations of each of those meetings. So for example, the East County CLAG, the first meeting was in Pittsburgh, the next will be in Oakley. And we're having them in different areas of the county to make sure it's accessible to more members. We've invited about 130 participants, and we think participation is going to continue to grow throughout those community leader advisory groups. And we have our next meeting scheduled for later this month. The timing is really good for us because we just dropped our first enrollment notice this week. So we are legally required to send 4 mailed notices to our customers informing them of service, 2 go out before service starts in April, and 2 are mailed out afterwards. And there was a copy of that notice, that first notice, in your packet. Here's the envelope. We got our own copy in the mail yesterday. And we split those out into about 4 different batches per notice. So the ones that the mailers that dropped this week went to about 52,000 customers in Contra Costa County. So our call center and customer service staff are already busy fielding calls, answering questions, and providing information to customers who have questions. Actually, a little bit more about those notices. So the first one went out in an envelope, sealed letter. The next notice that's going out is a trifold brochure. So it's got a whole bunch of information in it as well. And then the 3rd and 4th notices are postcards. And I think it's worth noting that what you received in your packet was just the very general notice, but we actually have specific messaging for all of the different customer groups. So customers who are on care, FARA, or any other kind of payment assistance program, customers with rooftop solar, they tend to have lots of questions about net energy metering and a variety of different situations so that we're getting all of the information that they need to make their choices. We also partnered with the city of Martinez. They are sending out an additional notice in their water bill as an insert. It's going out to 10,000 residential customers. It's going out this month and next. And it's just a very shortened version of what's in our enrollment notice as another way to educate customers about the upcoming choice. We have a Contra Costa specific webpage, and it's a little bit difficult to see up here, but this is we have a mcecleanenergy.org/Contra Costa that we're using on all of the information that goes out in that community, so that instead of going to the home page and having to search around, they can go to one page that's specific to their community, references what we're talking about in the notices, what they're hearing about in the meetings. They can sign up for Deep Green, they can opt out, they can get rate comparisons, find out about meetings in their communities, so it's just all in a nice, easy hub for them to find that. Dawn mentioned earlier about our new call center in Pittsburgh. We're really excited. We have actually tripled the number of call center staff. We originally had 6, now we have 18, and 12 of them are in Pittsburgh. They are English and Spanish speaking. Spanish speakers are especially important. We see call volumes around as high as 30% calling in Spanish. And because we're in an enrollment period right now, we have call center reps available 24/7 to answer phone calls if someone calls to opt out, which I think is pretty special. You can call at 3 o'clock in the morning with your request and actually talk to a human being who can help you. We also have translation. What was that?
I'm not going to do it.
In case you get bored and need someone to talk to, MCE will be there. We also have translation services available for 240 languages that are not Spanish. So if someone calls in speaking Russian or something like that, we can get a third party on the line to do interpretations for us. This is a photo, it looks so dark and gloomy, but in real life it wasn't, of one of our colleagues, Alexandra McGee, at a municipal staff training. So one of the things that we also do is we work with all of the staff from each of the communities who are joining us to inform them about MCE, not all of the staff, but the ones who are used to dealing with the public. To let them know about MCE and the schedule for notices and how to answer basic questions, how to get a hold of us, and basically what to do if someone calls and comes in with a question. So all of those trainings were hosted in January, and one of the things that we did this year that was different was we did a live Facebook feed. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, where people post live in real time. And we have had over 1,500 views because of the Facebook feeds that were posted by Concord and Danville. So it was a really great way that we were just kind of going with it and testing it out, but it was a great way to get more information out to a whole bunch of people. And so we're also doing lots of advertising in the communities. This is a list of the print advertising that we're doing. It'll be running, it started in January actually, and will be running through May. In all of these different periodicals, the East Bay Times, Kensington Outlooks, some of the bigger newspapers, but also some of the smaller as well, to really get a more diverse group of readers to get the information. The advertisements that we do in print and in newspapers, like newspapers, magazines, journals, is a little bit different. We really use it as more of an advertorial opportunity, a way to provide the information that we're including in the notices. So more than just big pretty ads and feel-good messaging, but really again like the meat of the information that we know customers are wanting to get. So this is a sample of part of one of the ads that we have running in the East Bay Times. We're also advertising outdoor in BART stations. We've got some really big ads in each of these stations: Concord, North Concord, Martinez, Pittsburgh, Richmond, and Walnut Creek, and those will be running through May. These are the types of ads that are going up there. These are actually pictures of Contra Costa County. I'm sure most of you guys can tell that. Beautiful Contra Costa. And one of our colleagues who snapped a selfie of herself arriving at our, actually she was in Walnut Creek here, but some of the Walnut Creek ads to sort of give you an idea of scale. We also have online ads running, which are really helpful because we can geographically target users. So if there's a computer that's being used in one of the new service areas, we can send ads directly to them on about 1 million different websites, which is pretty crazy. So we end up getting our message across directly to people in those communities. Those will be running through the end of May. And it's a combination of just static ads and also videos. I'll show you a sampling of each of those. And then we're also doing paid search on Google, Yahoo, and Bing. As most of you know, through the conversations that we've had over the last year, sometimes people get confused about our name. So even though we're consistent in our messaging with it, people can type in all kinds of things related to MCE, and our website should pop up right at the top because of that paid advertising. We're also doing an online ad with the Contra Costa Hispanic Chamber website. These are some of the samples of our digital ads. They are informational to let people know that the choice is coming, but we're also using these digital ads as an opportunity to promote Deep Green. And then I am hoping to show you one of the video ads that we're showing online. And this was made actually by a student intern that we have, and features local residents and and it also featured our beautiful MCE Solar One. Hopefully you all recognized? Yes. Thank you. So in addition to the digital ads, we have Comcast ads running. You may have seen them. We actually have on-air highlights in the 2018 Winter Olympics. So if you're watching the Winter Olympics, look out for MCE ads. They're also going to be playing during the Warriors basketball playoffs. And they're actually already up and airing, but they're throughout our service area. So it's not only in the 9 new communities, but also through our existing communities in Contra Costa, Marin, and Napa. About 75% of the customers are going to be in those new communities because we're really targeting them right now. But we're excited to see those videos. And I have them again, just for a reminder. I know some of these may be new to you. So we have 2 different ads, one promoting Deep Green and then one just general about MCE.
This land was built by doers. We came with a fire in our bellies, toiled to build a place to call home. We led movements, sparked innovation. Our strength comes from real people, not corporate giants. From the food we eat to the air we breathe, to the clean energy that powers our lives. We're doers, but also do-gooders. Thank you for choosing to do good.
I love that so much.
Is it?
All right, and there is one more.
For the next generation of great explorers.
For my livelihood.
Para mis clientes.
For the future of our community.
So we don't end up like dinosaurs.
Everyone has a reason to opt up to Deep Green 100% renewable energy. What will you opt up for?
That'd be interesting.
All right, and, thank you. In addition to all of these other advertising and media outlets, we're also getting the message out on our own MCE-owned media. That would be our e-newsletter, our blog, and social media. And as you can see here, we have quite a wide reach there, over 4,600 subscribers to our e-newsletter, and we're getting close to 7,000 followers on social media. You guys might remember, or some of you might remember the campaign that we talked about during our last enrollment called Ringing for Renewables. One of our employees came up with that, which I think is pretty cute. And what we're doing is reaching out directly to organizations in the new communities to let them know about MCE. So in addition to the notices, all the advertising, we are making phone calls and sending an email to organizations that have been recommended to us by yourselves, by city staff, and by community leaders, and also through our own research. So by doing this outreach, we are hoping that they can also help spread the word for us, include information about the enrollment in their newsletters, invite us to table at events or present to their groups, or any other kinds of ideas that they have to get it out. And this also helps us really reach a more diverse group of people. I mean, you can see here we're talking about houses of worship, ESL, English as a second language, organizations focused on low-income families and individuals, senior citizens, veterans, school districts. So it's a really comprehensive and fruitful project for us. So we are in the midst of that project as well. And partially because of that, and because of the contacts that so many of the community leaders and electeds and staff have provided us, we've been able to participate in community events. So I've got a couple of slides listing the events that we've participated in so far in the 9 new communities, and it seems to go on and on. At the end of the enrollment period, I'm really excited. It's always nice to look back. We typically see that we do more than 200 events in a year, and that's just with our existing service area, so this year should really be a doozy. This is a list of the upcoming events that we have in the new communities. These are all listed on our website, on that Contra Costa specific page, and on the events page of our website. You can also email us or let me know if you're interested in getting the details about these, because we're happy to share them with you. In addition to presenting at these community groups and doing farmers markets and fairs, we also are hosting our own community meetings. We're including those on our enrollment notices to encourage participation. And we have 3 scheduled, as you can see here, in Concord, San Ramon, and Oakley. And we also have a solar-specific workshop that will be for net energy metering customers, where we can get down into the technical details and answer questions for those folks. That is it, and I'd love to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Jamie. Great presentation. We've obviously done these new enrollments before, but it's fantastic to see how you and your team have scaled up all of these activities on, this amazing scale of activities.
Thanks. I have to give a huge shout out to my team, because it's a tremendous amount of work, and I would agree that things have scaled up and they've been doing a really great job. So thanks, and thanks to them.
Bet. Comments, questions from the board? Kevin?
Just Kevin Herhoff from Larkspur. And I just want to echo those comments. I just think that the media outreach on so many different fronts that you all have been doing is just terrific. Every time I see one of your ads come on TV, I'm just getting a real kick out of it. So thank you very much for that. I actually had just kind of one little question. And seeing the video ad that you ran for the opt-up to Deep Green, I've actually had a person come up to me who lives out in Contra Costa County who saw billboard signs at BART stations where the same theme. And she kind of asked me, said, "Well, I thought MCE was you had to opt out as opposed to opt up." I was confused by that. I was just wondering whether there's been any confusion that you've heard of anecdotally about the use of that expression.
Thanks so much. I actually haven't heard that as being a common, to be honest, no. That hasn't been something that I have personally answered. When we are informing customers about the choices on our print ads and in our mailers, we are very clear about the 3 different choices about light green, and it just happens automatically. And if you do nothing, you'll start service in April, but you can opt up to deep green. And we do try and use the opt up lingo. You might remember from our ad campaign last year, it was everything was hashtag opt up. But I appreciate that feedback, and I think it's important for us to keep in mind, especially if there's just an ad with only deep green.
And that's where it came up. So
Yeah.
when it's not being presented in context,
Mm-hmm.
I think it potentially at least can create an
Yeah.
opportunity for confusion.
Okay, that's really good feedback, and I'll share that with our marketing team. Thank you.
And Concord,
Sorry,
Hi.
Concord, what did you say? Sorry?
sorry, this is Dave Trotter in Concord. I have a sort of an observation, if that's all right, not a question.
You bet.
This initial batch of letters went around to some folks in Moraga, and it re-triggered a thread on Nextdoor. Basically, MCE versus PG&E, who knows? And I just wanted to let the marketing folks, and the folks who've been responding, know that I've read those this evening, and there appears to be a running thread that the information that MCE is providing is difficult to understand, to work through all the different cost comparisons, and it's particularly a problem for people that have solar on their homes. So I think that's an area where perhaps more work can be done, and I just want to it gets pretty technical, but a lot of the comments are, I don't understand it. It doesn't look like I come out ahead. I'm opting out.
It's helpful
And
to,
so I just think that.
yeah, thank you for that, Dave. That's helpful feedback.
Yeah, that's really helpful, and we can see about, actually with with our community leader advisory groups, we can see about getting into that next door. One of the limitations that we have as a CCA is access to Nextdoor. But I really appreciate that feedback, and we will bring that to our community development team to see how we can address that.
Let me know if, I can try to forward I get a regular, email message.
That would be, that would be really
But that
helpful.
email it's an email from Nextdoor, and then you got to have access, you got to set up an account, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how you access it.
It would be really helpful to have that emailed to us. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And one of the things that Jamie's team has been doing a lot of lately is if you get an inquiry as a director on the board, if you get an inquiry from a customer or a group of customers, feel free to forward it to us. You can forward it to me or Darlene. We'll make sure it gets to Jamie's team, and they do a great job of providing a quick response that you can get back to that customer. That can also apply to Nextdoor. So if you're on a Nextdoor chain, we may not have access to that chain. We can give you a response that you could feed in there as an individual.
Thanks, Don.
I can give you a Facebook one that you could get on, and that's Oakley Politics, where they're just, I want to say the word ripping MCE, and I think it would be good for someone to jump on there and maybe give some education.
That sounds good. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep. This is Lisa Blackwell, and I just got on our Nextdoor too, and it looks like it's being talked about quite a bit since they just came out today. So I will share that here.
Thank you.
Or just more questions, but it looks like it looks like just today it's all being discussed.
Call center's gonna be working late tonight.
So just one,
Hold on a second. Was there more from Concord folks? Okay, Barbara.
Barbara from Fairfax, just a suggestion, as a public agency, you can get an account on Nextdoor, we have one. You cannot see what people are saying unless they respond to you, but it may be an avenue for you to push out information. So you may want to look into that. I know cities can, and we do. I think as a public agency, you can also set up an account.
We've explored it really quite extensively, along with the other CCAs as well, because Nextdoor is a very popular place for people to have conversations about it. But Nextdoor hasn't been able to, actually, we're the only CCA who has been given access so far. Hey, thanks to
Yay.
Alan Chu, one of our staff members, for lots of pushing there. But so far, they've only been able to give us access into one community, so only into Marin
Okay.
County, and they don't have experience, I guess it doesn't matter
They
about
may
getting into
have
the
just
nitty
started
gritty,
it
but
in Marin.
about giving public agencies access to multiple service areas, and we were the first. They're kind of experimenting with us by allowing us to have access to Marin County, but I completely agree with you, and I'm happy to say that the other CCAs are also helping with that, and it was actually a topic of discussion with a marketing subcommittee
And
for
sometimes you
CalCCA
get
today.
isolated on particular topical streams
Uh-huh.
where you're not actually getting to the public as broadly as you'd like to be.
Yeah.
So I think working through the CLAG is really a great way to go.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I agree.
Yeah. Other comments or questions? For Jamie, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, super. We have one more update. I think these updates are really helpful in our new year. And this is our policy update.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cece, and I am the Senior Policy Analyst, and really glad to be here to give you a brief update on our regulatory and legislative activities. So first up, legislative meetings. MCE staff, and thank you so much for the MCE board legislative ambassadors who have met with most assembly members and senators who represent MCE service areas. Also, John, on behalf of MCE, participated in the CalCCA staff briefing in Sacramento, and over 50 Sacramento legislative staffers attended this meeting. Next, we're going over a few different CPUC issues. So the first one is the Integrated Resources Planning proposed decision, which was issued on December 29, 2017, and since then, a final decision has been made on February 8, 2018. So in this decision, we were at first concerned that the CPUC would issue advanced procurement of renewable resources to take advantage of the renewable tax credit that will be expiring. Unfortunately, because there is no strong evidence of cost savings, the CPUC did not order any advanced early procurement. So that was really great news. We remain to be concerned about some of the language that implies that the CPUC has authority over CCA's IRPs. We did see some good language that highlights the importance of collaborating with CCA governing boards in certifying, finalizing the IRPs. So we will be working with CPUC commissioners' offices and also Energy Division staff to refine the process of complying and reporting in the IRP proceeding this coming year. And then finally, we were concerned that the CPUC would adopt a GHG emissions calculation methodology proposed by PG&E without being vetted, but we are very glad to see that in the final decision, they did not adopt this methodology, but instead there is going to be a workshop or a series of workshops to develop a GHG emissions calculation methodology. And I want to especially thank Director Haroff for attending a lot of these meetings with commissioners. I think it made a huge difference in helping the commissioners see the importance of working with CCA's governing boards.
And others as well.
Thank you. Next up is draft resolution E4907. And as you may recall, this is the resolution that would have delayed all the CCA, new CCA launch until 2019. CPUC released a revised draft resolution on February 2nd, 2018, and it was voted out of the commission on February 8th. And the revision adopted an interim waiver process to allow CCAs to launch in 2018. This waiver process will allow the CCAs to negotiate RA allocation with the IOUs, either come to an agreement on the RA price or ask the CPUC to set a price for the RA resources. And CCAs who will be launching after 2019, the process will be figured out in the ongoing 2018 RA proceeding. And again, I want to thank Director Sears, Director Haroff, Director Bailey, and Director Tatson for participating in numerous ex parte meetings with CPUC commissioners. Again, to highlight the importance of working with CCA local governing boards and really educating them about CCA's procurement and planning process. And next, CPUC held a 2-day workshop on the PCIA methodology on January 16th and January 17th this year. And CalCCA presented some high-level conceptual approaches to reduce the above-market cost, such as voluntarily allocating some of IOU's portfolios through some market mechanism. The IOUs at the workshop continue to advocate for the portfolio allocation mechanism that they proposed last year. We're expecting a final decision before the end of the year. Next, the decision on PG&E's 2018 Energy Resource Recovery Account application was finally issued on January 2018. Regularly, the decision would be issued and approved before the end of the year to allow PG&E rate change to take place on March 1st every year. But because of the delay, CPUC authorized PG&E to create a balancing account to track the under-collections of the PCIA from January and February 2018 this year. The IOUs earlier this month filed a petition for modification for CCA Code of Conduct. As you may recall, the Code of Conduct was part of SB 790, and the Code of Conduct directed that if the IOUs want to market against CCAs, they need to form an independent marketing division that will be funded by their shareholders. The IOUs filed the petition and asked the CPUCs to allow the IOUs to lobby local governments about CCA programs, and also asked them to remove the prohibition to let them communicate directly with the press against CCA programs. And they want to do this with both existing CCA programs and also CCA programs that have yet to launch. We will be filing a reply to the petition for modification on March 1st, 2018, along with CalCCA. And lastly, the California Energy Commission released the second staff proposal to implement AB 1110, and this is the legislation that was passed in 2016 that requires all retail suppliers of electricity to disclose the greenhouse gas emissions associated with their electricity product. So the second proposal, which was released on January 17th this year, they contain some of the changes supported by CalCCA, but some of the proposals continue to be inconsistent with the state's Renewable Portfolio Standard Program, and also inconsistent with industry best practices for GHG emissions accounting, and could potentially result in cost impact for retail suppliers and definitely ratepayers. So the two things that are inconsistent are that, one, greenhouse gas emissions will still be assigned to firm-and-shaped renewable resources. So these are the bucket 2 resources based on the substitute energy. And also, retail suppliers would have to report the use of unbundled RECs, bucket 3, resources separate from other renewable energy resources in the portfolio. So again, very inconsistent with the RPS program. And we'll be working along with CalCCA and other stakeholders to ensure that the final regulations will be consistent with the RPS program and also industry best practices. That's it.
Great, super, thank you, Cece. Any questions? Looks like 2018 is going to be a lively regulatory year, doesn't it? Yep. But I guess we're used to that.
Give us something new.
Give us something new, yeah. All righty, well, thank you very much. Those updates were terrific. And just any other board or staff matters before we adjourn? No. Concord? No. Thanks for being here, everybody. We're adjourned.
Yay.